Hello, a very good evening to you. Welcome to ITV News and to Monday night's calendar.
Thank you for joining us. Here are tonight's main stories.
Tributes are paid to Barbara Taylor Bradford, who went from humble Leeds typist to global superstar author, but never forgot where she came from.
When the idea came to her for A Woman of Substance, it was set in Yorkshire. It took her straight back to her roots, the Brontes, and just to the setting that meant so much to her.
Counting the cost again. Calderdale feels the force of Storm Bert as one dad has to rescue his baby son from this submerged car.
It was more afterwards I was panicking with thinking what could have happened if the windows wouldn't work.
Scan and scam. We speak to the Yorkshire drivers duped by criminal gangs using sophisticated fake QR codes.
Dan James, Nonto, onside, Nonto! This is incredible!
And in sport, this late winner pushes Leeds United top of the Championship after a 7-goal thriller at Swansea. But first tonight, she was known as the grande dame of the blockbuster and her novels were loved by millions around the world. Barbara Taylor Bradford has died at the age of 91.
But although she became a global superstar author, she rose from humble beginnings in Leeds and began her career as a typist turned reporter on the Yorkshire Evening Post. Sally Simpson has been speaking to those paying tribute to her today.
Barbara Taylor Bradford had a long and distinguished career to look back on, which began as a journalist in Leeds and ultimately gave her fame and fortune. As an author, she went on to sell more than 90 million copies of her books around the world, among the most famous, A Woman of Substance.
I don't want a man getting involved with the business.
Which was adapted into a popular television series. Jenny Seagrove played Barbara's leading lady.
She wrote wonderfully entertainingly. Brilliantly entertainingly, but for me, A Woman of Substance was just... There was something about it. It was very truthful, very special, very inspiring, which is how I found her.
But she never forgot her Yorkshire roots.
Even after she'd moved to London to be a journalist on Fleet Street, and then she moved to New York with her husband Bob and was living an American life to all intents and purposes. But when the idea came to her for A Woman of Substance, it was set in Yorkshire. It took her straight back to her roots and to the stories she'd heard growing up, the Brontes, to the wild moors, and just to the setting that meant so much to her. I think she will leave a huge hole in all of our lives because the time I spent chatting to her on the phone or even travelling with her to meet her readers around the country was some of the happiest memories of my publishing career.
I always thought that writers were born, that they were posh people down in the capital, and Barbara Taylor Bradford was, a beacon on my path. She showed me that Yorkshire girls who came from lowly backgrounds can be successful.
At her boutique in West Yorkshire, former journalist Liz Green says her fondest memory of Barbara is of them in New York.
We went to this really swanky restaurant off Fifth Avenue and there were all these Hollywood, New York media types. I'm like, oh, God. And that girl from Yorkshire held that room. She was great. And yet I could have been in a fish and chip shop somewhere in Yorkshire. Does that make sense? The girl hadn't moved from that, but she carried everything with her.
And as she told me in 2019, Barbara had no plans to stop doing what she did best.
I'll be writing. I'll die with my boots on at a typewriter.
Oh, Sally Simpson on the tributes being paid to Barbara Taylor Bradford, who's died at the age of 91. Well, more of the day's news, businesses and homeowners in the Calder Valley are counting the cost of a weekend of flooding. Rain from Storm Bert and melting snow led to flooded roads along the River Calder. Several properties and businesses were affected, including the Stubbin Wharf pub in Hebden Bridge, recently under new management and now having to cancel festive events. In Todmorden, a father and his baby had a narrow escape from their car after driving into what he thought was a shallow puddle, only to become stranded as water filled the car.
I was thinking I just need to get him safe, get him warm, get him inside. I think I was pretty calm, really. But it was more afterwards I was panicking with, like, what the repercussions could have been. And thinking, like, what could have happened if the windows wouldn't work, or if it was someone else in that situation who weren't really able to get out.
As a lucky escape there. Well, meanwhile, Calderdale Council has decided not to go ahead with plans to reduce its gritting service this winter. It had announced that certain routes would not be gritted after December the 1st as part of a package of budget savings. But the authority says it has listened carefully to the large number of concerns and will not now go ahead with the cuts.
Our next tonight to the debate which has the potential to determine whether terminally ill people should have the right to choose when and how they die. The
assisted dying bill has been put forward by a Yorkshire MP, Kim Leadbeater, but figures obtained by ITV News say, well, not every MP is that keen. No, our political correspondent Sharon-Preet Kaira has been gauging opinion, and she has also been talking to one man with a degenerative disease which has afflicted his family, who wants the right to choose.
Josh Cook comes to life when he's teaching rugby, but unlike most 33-year-olds, he's had to think a lot about death.
I have Huntington's disease, which is a genetic terminal illness that's degenerative. I have a very long, slow decline in my future.
Your mental side goes, you are no longer able to recognise those you love. You're no longer able to comprehend what's happening, to make an informed choice. And then the end starts where your throat muscles, you lose control, you start to choke to death.
That's what happened to Josh's grandmother and great-grandmother. His mum Lisa had Huntington's too.
Which takes 10 to 20 years.
For years, she and Josh campaigned together for the right to choose when and how they would die. But Lisa's symptoms got worse before that became possible. And this summer, she took matters into her own hands.
One weekend, I left to go play rugby, to then come home, walking into my house with a smile on my face, all happy, to then find my mother has taken her own life.
Walking in and finding her will haunt me till the day that my time comes.
I need to try and make a difference.
Now there's a chance the law could change if MPs vote in favour of a bill proposed by Spen Valley MP Kim Leadbeater. She says too many are forced to die in pain and misery or to travel abroad to end their lives.
That is very inequitable because you have to spend £10,000–15,000 in doing so. Often people do that prematurely because clearly they have to be well enough to travel. And then there are those families where people have taken their own lives because they've been so desperate and so scared about what their end might look like. But again, they don't tell their loved ones before they take their own lives because they could be prosecuted. So you've got layers of the law, or rather the lack of law, that create a situation which is just not fit for purpose.
The terminally ill adults' end-of-life bill would permit people with less than 6 months left to live to be given assistance to end their life. They'd have to declare twice that they wanted to die, showing full mental capacity, and they'd need sign-off from 2 independent doctors, with the decision also sent to a High Court judge for final approval. There would be a jail sentence of up to 14 years for anyone found to have pressured someone into ending their life. Despite those safeguards, some fear the bill still poses a risk to vulnerable people. Professor Alan House has worked as a psychiatric consultant at Leeds General Infirmary for 15 years. He says checking for mental capacity isn't enough.
It's framed as if it's free choice or it's person's choice. Surely you can approve of people having personal choice. But you don't have a full choice if all the opportunities aren't available to you. Now that's surfaced a bit with the recognition that palliative care services are so lacking in this country.
The single biggest influence in my life.
Josh is grieving in the knowledge that his mum's dying wish wasn't fulfilled. It's now up to Parliament to decide whether to change the law so that his can be.
Yes, it's certainly a very difficult subject. Well, let's join our political correspondent, Charanpreet Kaur, now. And Charanpreet, this is certainly dividing opinion amongst MPs, isn't it?
Yes, it really is, Ian. I've asked every single MP in our region how they plan to vote this Friday. Of those that replied, 19 said that they'll vote in favour of changing the law, 11 said they'd vote against, but crucially, 18 are still undecided. Now, that broadly reflects the national picture. According to research carried out by ITV News, 135 MPs plan to vote in favour of the bill, 84 against, and 121 are undecided. That means that just a few days before this bill's future will be determined in Parliament, we are really in the dark about what the result may be, especially when you consider that it's only about half of the 650 MPs in Parliament who've actually told us how they plan to vote. Now, this would be a seismic social change if it did go through. The last time that MPs had the opportunity to vote on this was around a decade ago. And of course, campaigners like Josh will be really disappointed if this doesn't go through on Friday. Officially, the government is taking a neutral stance on this, but some cabinet members have made their viewpoints known. Interestingly, Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, and Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, both prominent cabinet members who say they'll vote against this bill. Now, if you look at how assisted dying would be practiced if this law became reality, then it would involve the NHS, Wes Streeting's domain, and of course the courts, Shabana Mahmood's domain. So their views are especially interesting. On the flip side, in our region, important members of Parliament who've said they will vote in favour of the bill include Louise Haigh, the Transport Secretary, Hilary Benn, the Northern Ireland Secretary, and Diana Johnson, the Policing Minister.
And Charanpreet, why are some MPs voting against this bill?
Well, Ian, it really varies. Of course, this is very much to do with personal preference. Some people have religious or moral things to say about this bill. But when it comes to Rachel Maskell, the MP for York Central, she has oppositions to this bill based on her time as a clinician. She was a physio in the NHS.
As a clinician, I heard my patients say so many times that they were concerned about the cost of their care or felt that they were a burden. And of course, that means that they could talk themselves into an assisted death. But worst of all, a doctor could suggest to a patient that they consider assisted dying. I just find that is so coercive that this bill is not fit for practice. Also, they talk about dying within 6 months, and doctors, specialists are saying to prognosticate at 6 months, there's only a 46% accuracy. This bill is really unsafe and it must be voted down.
Rachel Maskell has made up her mind. Time's running out for the hundreds of MPs who haven't to do the same.
OK, Charanpreet Kaur live at Westminster. Thank you.
You're watching Monday Night's Calendar with Ian White and Lisa Adlam. Thank you for being with us. Still to come on the programme tonight.
We've the incredible story of Elizabeth Cranswick, who shares her memories of being held in a Nazi internment camp and escaping war-torn France exactly 80 years ago.
There were so many children died in the camp through being underfed and that, and I was one of the lucky ones.
More of that shortly, but first more of the day's news. And 4 people have been arrested over the death of a man who was found injured at a house in York. The man, who was in his 20s and from Bradford, was one of 3 people injured in an incident at Viner Street on Saturday evening. Another man is in hospital in a stable condition. A woman suffered minor injuries. 2 men from York are being questioned on suspicion of murder. A woman in her 30s and a man in his 60s have been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender.
Now, drivers across our region are being warned of fake QR codes which are being used for parking scams.
The codes lead people to fraudulent websites where personal data is stolen and their money is taken from bank accounts.
The national monitoring organisation Action Fraud says so far this year, £1.5 million has been stolen from people just trying to pay to park. Chloe Oliver has more.
An eagle-eyed driver peels off a fake QR code to reveal the real payment method underneath it. Paying to park by phone has become a modern necessity, but the cashless convenience is being harnessed by criminals. Stickers like this one are popping up across the region, redirecting users to fraudulent websites. And that's exactly what happened to Milton Howarth.
The machine wasn't working. So I went to the side and I saw this sign and it said, pay by phone. So then I decided I'd try that. I got my phone out. There's a QR code. I pointed at it, clicked on it, and then I put my details in. On the Sunday, £39 went out of my account. So I went looking into that and I Googled them and I found out that they had hundreds of scams.
It is concerning because we all know what we're like when we come to car parks. We're rushing to get to a meeting or to meet friends or something. You just want the easiest, most convenient way to pay, and if you see a QR code there, like, oh. So I encourage anybody, if it's a car park that you know and you haven't seen one before, please don't use it. Please report it to the relevant authority.
It's not just about losing money. Victims could also be disclosing sensitive information, such as credit card data, logging details, or personal information.
Be aware of further scamming down the line, because what we're finding is that it's data harvesting, it's phishing or quishing as they call it. So it means that you might get a call further down the line from somebody purporting to be from your bank.
According to Action Fraud, £1.5 million has been stolen so far this year in this way. That's triple the amount since 2020. It's an issue the British Parking Association wants to combat.
In terms of the technology side, one of the things that we're doing is when we're notified by a local authority or a car parking operator that a bad actor is in play on a QR code, what we will then do is we will contact the internet service provider and they will then take that bad actor down within 24 to 48 hours.
The wildfire spread of quick response codes means the attacks are becoming more common, warn security experts like Nick Elliott from Leeds.
The adoption and increased usage of them in our day-to-day lives mean they're more familiar, and as a result of that we've got a larger kind of opportunity for cyber criminals and scammers to exploit that.
QR codes can be found in many car parks, and while most are legitimate, the advice is to think and check next time you scan. Chloe Oliver, ITV News.
Some important advice there. Right now it's time for some sport, and we start with football, with Leeds United flying high in the Championship.
Xero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
And it's good evening to Chris, of course, who's with us.
Hello.
And I think it was a bit of a thriller yesterday for Leeds United. They're now top of the Championship.
Oh, 1.5, Ian. Yeah, they never do it easy, do they, Leeds? Never. You can always rely on them for that. There were 7 goals shared at the Swansea.com stadium, with Leeds scoring 4 of them. Now, this goal from Manor Solomon, his second of the day, had put Leeds 3-2 up and looking pretty comfortable. But a minute from time, a cross from the left, a near post finish, and the scores were level. But that wasn't the end of the drama, though. Leeds go up the other end, and Willie Gnonto puts one in. 4-3, the final score.
We know right now we're on a really good spell, but even after such a game, we also speak about things that were not perfect. For example, the defending in the 90th minute, or the defending in added time in the first half. So I try to make sure that we don't let the standard drop, even in small details. And if you do this and always speak about this, and hopefully, finally, the players develop also like a winning mentality that sky's the limit.
Well, that result means Leeds leapfrog Sheffield United, who twice led at Coventry thanks to goals from Tyrese Campbell and Jesser and Raksaki, but had to settle for a draw. The major talking point, though, in this one, the red card showed to Blades defender Anel Ahmedhodzic. No disputing the decision, but United manager Chris Wilder not happy with the antics of Coventry striker Norman Bissett. The points were also shared at Hillsborough, where Dishon Bernard equalised for Sheffield Wednesday against Cardiff, but Owls boss Danny Roll was left frustrated his team didn't capitalise on their dominance of the game. Now, Huddersfield are enjoying a good run in League One. It's now 6 games unbeaten after a 2-1 win over Charlton. Matty Pearson, the Keighley Cannavaro, put them ahead, and after Charlton equalised, David Kasumu fired in the winner. Barnsley's 5-match unbeaten run was ended by Wigan's Thello Arsgaard. This, the only goal at Oakwell. No home comforts either for Mansfield, who've now lost back-to-back games. Bristol Rovers, the 1-0 victors at Field Mill. And a manager under pressure is Rotherham's Steve Evans. The Millers beaten 1-0 by Crawley. OK, into League Two, and Chesterfield left it late, a minute from time actually, to score the winner against Barrow. Captain Fantastic Jamie Grimes stepping off the bench to head in. Harrogate came from behind to win at Gillingham. Anthony O'Connor pulled them level before Josh March raced clear of the defence to finish into the bottom corner. 2-1 the final score, and Jay McGrath was sent off late on as Doncaster drew 0-0 at Carlisle. And finally from me, it was a weekend of mixed fortunes for the Sheffield Steelers in ice hockey's Elite League. After winning in Manchester on Saturday, the Steelers were brought back down to earth with a bump at the Sheffield Arena yesterday, losing 4-2 to Dundee. Don't happen often that, you know, the Steelers losing at home, but there you go. You win some, you lose some, don't you?
You do, absolutely. And Keithley Cannavaro.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that one. Like
That's
that
his
one.
nickname.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
But can you spell it? I don't know. Now, it's that time of year when children everywhere are writing their Christmas lists, and as you'd expect, toys feature at the top of many of them. But they're also on the wish list for charity shops, who are encouraging people to both donate and buy their gifts with them this year.
Yes, and with almost £1 billion being spent on toys last year, it could be big business for those organisations who rely on donations to help others. Kevin Ashford reports.
They're getting ready for Christmas at this charity shop in Leeds, and toys are always popular.
Quite a big demand, to be fair, yeah. We get a lot of children in, and a lot of deprived families, so that's good for us, you know, good for the families.
Beulah Gadda says buying pre-loved means she can get more gifts for her money for her son Vidden.
He likes to explore them, so that's why I think second-hand toys are really excellent. That means like I can buy variety of them for him, and he can explore and learn a lot from it.
To sell toys, of course, charity shops need them donated, and families are being urged to have a pre-Christmas clear-out to help boost stocks. The Brown family have been doing just that. They're regular donators and customers at this hospice charity shop.
We sometimes come here to do shopping, and quite often we'll donate toys and then fill the space by buying new things.
Do you do that just because it's cheap, or is it a principle of the thing?
But principle, it's sustainable, and also it's supporting a local cause, so it's quite important to do that.
You brought these toys in today. Some of them, those toys were yours.
Oh yeah, quite a lot of them.
Do you mind your toys coming to the charity shop?
No, they're going to people who need them more than me, so yeah.
Charity shops usually see a spike in toy donations after Christmas, but the man representing charity shops across the country says donating them before the festive season could have a bigger impact.
I think people should have a real think about whether they can do that, because it's not just the fact that we don't just get donated with unwanted toys, we also get donated with toys that have been sort of replaced by the new Christmas present. So if you kind of replace them just before Christmas instead of afterwards, that'd be really great.
So whether it's making space or making someone's Christmas, the charity shop could be one of your shopping destinations this festive season. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
The excitement's building. Have you written yours yet?
My Christmas list. Do you want it?
No, I don't know. What do you get the man who's got everything?
Well, this is it.
Anyway, finally tonight to a family who are making sure the incredible memories of an elderly woman from Wakefield are preserved for posterity. 8 decades to the day after she escaped Nazi-occupied France.
89-year-old Elizabeth Cranswick, a former Lady Mayoress of Wakefield, was a child living in the Chantilly region of France when Adolf Hitler's Germany invaded in 1940.
Well, in the years that followed, she was sent to an internment camp and witnessed deadly bombings. She's been sharing her incredible memories with our reporter, Jonathan Brown.
And they came for her in the middle of the night. I just remember getting all my dolls out and a German soldier being in the house with his gun. I remember being on a train and looking out of the window, and I said to my mum, "Where is the other half of the train?" It must have been Jews. And they went to one camp and we were going to another.
Elizabeth is 89 and lives in a care home. but it's vivid memories of an extraordinary youth that keep flooding back. Born in France to English parents, she was just 4 years old when Nazi Germany invaded in 1940. Like thousands of other British people living on the continent, she was sent to a brutal internment camp called Frontstalag 142 near the German border.
We were maltreated, but we weren't fed properly. And as I say, we were sleeping on straw mattresses. And then the Red Cross people came in and gave us the boxes. There were so many children died in the camp, and I was one of the lucky ones.
The Germans released Britons aged under 16 in 1942, but 2 years of life under Nazi rule then followed.
The gathering of the mighty Armada.
During that time, Allied bombing campaigns, including the famous D-Day assault in June 1944, claimed thousands of lives in France, paving the way for a German surrender the following year.
The day we were liberated, my brother and his friend was going into the woods for the leaflets, and we saw the tanks burning and dead bodies like over the side trying to escape. The war will be with me all the time. I can't forget it.
The mementos she collected have rarely seen the light of day since. She was repatriated to England as a 9-year-old, eventually starting a family in Wakefield.
That's the flight order, the transport order bringing her to the UK.
80 years today?
80 years today.
How does that feel?
Now her son Colin is digitising the paper records to ensure stories like hers live on.
Once they're gone, the history's gone. It's resigned to what's in the books. The living experience of what my mum went through and other people like her dies with them. So it's important that you talk to your grandparents, you talk to your relatives.
I watched the D-Day landing when they celebrated the day, and I cried. I remember that. And I said to one of the carers, I said, please give me a hug. And I thank you very much for doing what you've done.
8 decades on, the emotions remain as clear as they were when these photographs were taken. So it's hopes opening the door to more conversations can add colour to a history few can still recall firsthand. Jonathan Brown, ITV News.
Wow. Aren't we privileged in this job that we get to hear stories like Elizabeth's?
And do you know what? I think we should send Elizabeth a big hug from all of us at Calendar, do
you? Yes, absolutely. I really think we should. And how important is it that they are also, those stories are also going to be told to many more people with what her family's doing?
Absolutely. Very important to preserve history, isn't it? Now then, let's see what's happening in the future. The weather forecast. Here's Nick Miller.
Good visibility on the horizon. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello, when weather makes news, it's rarely a good thing. So many headlines about Storm Bert over the weekend. This is how it started with the snow on Saturday morning, then the rain, then the melt, then the flooding. Rivers up in York, no surprise to see that. There are still some flood warnings around the city of York. It has been somewhat quieter and brighter today, but there's still some heavy showers and rainbows around, particularly across parts of West Yorkshire. Storm Bert still making for a breezy day today, though it is now moving away. This area of low pressure likely to miss us to the south going into Wednesday. As high pressure moves in from midweek, it does look quieter and calmer, but bear in mind as temperatures drop, it will be colder with some frosty nights and the risk of some freezing fog, particularly by Thursday morning. For now, though, well, lengthy clear spells overnight. Still some showers surviving through the night into and just over the Pennines across parts of North and West Yorkshire. Where you are dry and clear, you could just see a touch of frost on the ground as temperatures drop to low single figures. So a chillier start in the morning. Plenty of sunny spells around and many places will stay dry. But again, these showers will still be running in, particularly to parts of West Yorkshire during the day. Temperatures are a little bit lower tomorrow, but then again, there is a lighter breeze. Probably won't feel too different out and about. Will feel different first thing on Wednesday morning because at this stage there will be a more widespread frost around. Now, an area of low pressure probably missing us to the south going into Wednesday, so actually we're left with a lot of dry weather, those very light winds. It will feel colder, and bear in mind that risk of getting some freezing fog if you're up and about early on Thursday morning. That's your weather.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Thank you very much, Nick, and welcome back to you, Ian.
Oh, thank you very much.
A busy day, busy Monday to get started on.
Yeah, nice to be back though. Always nice to be back.
And you're hanging around.
I'm hanging around for the late news at 10:50, so very much you'll join us then. From Lisa and me, we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.